But before we get started, this is the topic of the week. We've got Greg Lafortune here with us, who's been with the Cognitive Empowerment Program now for a few years. He teaches classes here in person at the center and also hosts all of our online educational programmings. And Greg has been with us and has a really big interest in minority men's health. He is a graduate of Georgia State University, like myself, with a master's in nutrition and human performance from Logan University. And so he's really focused on really bridging the gap between nutrition and life goals. And outside of teaching us all about the mind diet and hosting all these sessions and getting us to eat blueberries and olive oil, he also has a wife and a daughter and is a musician in his spare time. So everybody, please welcome Greg to the group. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at empowerment@emory.edu. As usual, we'll get it to our staff members and get back to you in just a few days. So welcome in, Greg. I'm excited to talk about myth busting on the mind diet because I do think that there are a lot of myths out there, even a lot of sort of fears and intimidations when it comes to something like resetting your diet. We have a lot of folks that come into the program who maybe have been eating the same meals and the same things for decades and decades and decades. So thank you for coming and talking to us a little bit about how to break down some of the stigma and make it a little bit more approachable to get into some of these changes when it comes to nutrition.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to do it. Really glad to be here. Everyone, welcome. My name is Greg again. Nice to see you all. I'm glad that you're on today. So, Megan, as you were talking, it kind of brought me to the recent trend. I don't know if you've heard of oat Zempic, trying to mimic this powerful prescription drug used for weight management and weight loss. So it's a concoction that takes very simple ingredients like oats, water. I think there's like a squeeze of lemon or lime juice in there. And the claims are that drinking this has similar or the same effects as Ozempic. And again, the reason why I'm saying this is to preface today's class in saying that there are so many things out there in regards to nutrition that can be conflicting, that can be confusing, that cause problems. You're thinking that you're doing something right, but then you hear this very riveting headline, and then all of a sudden you think that everything that you were doing, you have to stop doing and now switch over to what you hear in mainstream social media or just in the news in general. And I just want to encourage you as a dietitian, of course, we can talk about optimal eating for brain health. Of course, there are certain nutrients and certain minerals and vitamins that correlate with a really strong heart and a really strong brain. But I would not want anyone here to get into a position to where they feel like there's so much noise around food that they just stop eating altogether. I rather you still eat and then working with the registered dietitian to really help to optimize what you are eating rather than cutting out all these food groups because somebody here says fruit is bad. Somebody there says eating nuts and seeds are bad. This person said eating whole grains is bad. We hear this all the time. And it's gotten so bad that I've even heard, Megan, that drinking water is bad. Like I hear so
Wow.
many different things. And as a dietitian, as a nutrition professional, I'm stuck here now having to not only educate people and work with them on their nutrition, but then debunk a lot of things that are on the web pertaining to things being said by people who have no credential or no expertise in nutrition. It's frustrating, but you know what? That's why we're here to clear up the myths and to really present to you what's true, what's accurate, and what's reliable. So I am going to go ahead and start my.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's so true that there's so much that comes into our thoughts and our awareness through things like social media or the TV, and not necessarily from experts like registered dietitians.
Mhm.
And so, again, this is your time, all of you here with us today, to have that expert advice, to be with a registered dietitian. And what we can say about that is that everything that Greg presents is supported and backed by research and his expertise and experience in the field. So go ahead and jump into it when you're ready, Greg.
Oh, no problem. So Today we're going to keep it really light, really simple. There's three myths that we're going to talk about. I hear them all the time, and I think it started around the time when the keto diet really started to take off. So, as I'm doing that, I just want anybody who has something that they've seen in the media. This is a question that's going to be later in the slide, but we can do it right now. Maybe you've seen something that you're just scratching your head like, is this really true about this particular food? I just kind of want anyone who has experienced that or felt that recently to post that in our chat. I would love to review and see what are you hearing in the media that may sound conflicting to you.
All right, we've got our first one in. Myth: sugar is sugar. Added sugar versus in sweet fruit. That's a good one. I always am so confused sometimes about the added sugar on the label. What other myths do we have about food that you guys have come into along the way?
This
Pineal
one, honestly,
calcification is a way to decalcify. That's one that might require some expert information.
I'm gonna talk about the first one, and Megan, I'm sending that to you right now. So sugar is sugar. So that actually is not a myth, believe it or not. But what I think it is that it's misleading more so than a myth. Because on one side of things, yes, sugar is going to be sugar, and the body recognizes sugar from a fruit the same way it recognizes sugar from a candy bar. Does that mean that fruits and candy bars now are equal in the nutrient density or in the amount of quality nutrients they contain? No, because if we're looking, let's take a standard candy bar. I don't want to name drop, but let's take Skittles, for example. And then let's take some blueberries. So even though the sugar amounts in both of these products can have the same effect on the body, the overall nutrients inside of that blueberry is so much more powerful, so much more potent than the amount of nutrients inside the Skittles. The Skittle might be solely sugar, while the blueberry might have sugar inside of it, but it also has dietary fiber, also has antioxidants, also has vitamins and minerals that can really pose a really, really powerful effect or have a really powerful effect on your body. So in that sense, they're not the same. It's misleading. It's true. That statement is true, but then again, it's extremely misleading at the same time.
And we've got another one who says apple cider vinegar to help cut blood sugar.
I don't know. This one might be more anecdotal, meaning that it's more of an experience, something that's happened to someone, a story that they're able to tell of personal experience. The truth is, there's really no strong research in regards to apple cider vinegar. Most of the claims that I've seen about it is dealing around weight loss. So in some cases, weight loss does have an effect on helping to lower your blood sugar. So I could kind of see a correlation there, but there's no strong research in regards to apple cider vinegar and cutting blood sugar. I will say that. Broccoli, banana. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we've got some, yeah, about the broccoli, banana, all same types of sugar.
Hmm.
And then this is a big one I know a lot of folks have. White potatoes. Should we be eating them? Should we not be eating them? Where do you stand?
It's funny because white potatoes versus sweet potatoes, we always hear eat more sweet potatoes. It has more fiber and more vitamins, which to an extent is true. Sweet potato, as you can tell, it's pigmented orange, and orange types of fruits and vegetables are going to be high in a vitamin called vitamin A, right? There's a precursor called beta carotene, and that beta carotene is vitamin A. It's the color orange. So carrots, bell peppers, sweet potatoes, mangoes, peaches have a lot of vitamin A because of that beta carotene pigment. So in regards to a sweet potato versus a regular potato, I know that's not the question here, but a regular potato can absolutely be incorporated into a healthy, normal diet. There's nothing inherently bad or evil about a white potato. It's gotten so extreme that there's a potato diet out there. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of the potato diet, which as a dietitian, I don't stand for. However, Potatoes can be incorporated into a nutritious plan and can be incorporated into a lot of healthy meals too. All right. I see some more in the chat. We'll talk about those as we wrap up. So the first myth that I want to address today, many say to reduce eating your whole grains because of the carbs that they contain, and carbs make you fat. Many people have experienced this one. They've even heard their doctors tell them to stop eating carbs because it's going to cause weight gain. But that's not quite the case. Let's go to the next slide. Carbohydrates and whole grains. So let's understand this. Carbohydrates are the brain's primary source of fuel. What does this mean? This means in the absence of eating carbohydrates, your brain won't function properly. Your body won't function properly. And the best kind of grains to get that are not processed grains are whole grains, right? So dietary fiber inside of these whole grains can help support weight management rather than cause weight gain. And it can also promote satiety, which is satisfying your overall hunger. Also, there are B vitamins inside of these whole grains that are not inside of these processed grains that support your overall metabolism, or how your body utilizes food for energy, how fast your body is able to utilize food for energy. So whole grains, as a matter of fact, can have a beneficial impact because of their fiber content and because of their B vitamins on overall weight. And also the same is true for the brain. The reason why there's a correlation with whole grains and the brain is because of that dietary fiber. And in our overall classes here at CEP, in our nutrition section, we talk about that correlation between the gut microbiome and the brain. So that dietary fiber is really helping to set a really healthy environment inside of what we call your gut microbiome to communicate with your brain, to send healthy signals in order to promote healthy brains. So I will say that. The Mind Diet recommends 3 servings of whole grains a day to support brain health. Here are some examples, and there are many more. Brown rice, whole grain flour, quinoa, oats, bulgur, millet, and a lot of other things as well. So instead of thinking that whole grain, so somebody asked, is barley and buckwheat good too? Yes, they are. The only thing I would say in regards to people in whole grains are that if you have a gluten sensitivity, or if you have a gluten intolerance, then you have to watch out for which grain you consume, because grains are a source of gluten. Many of them are not gluten containing, but then again, many others are. So that's the only thing I would say watch out for. But in general, whole grains are not going to be something that promote weight gain. Eaten in high amounts, perhaps, but eaten in moderate amounts, and the Mind Diet recommends 3 servings of whole grains a day, then you can really experience some healthy and beneficial results from that, incorporating that into your diet. So that's the first thing I wanted to say today in regards to this whole carbs are bad for you. It's the types of carbs that can be problematic. Let's go to the next one. Fruit causes diabetes. Many people have heard this. I hear this all the time. I actually got into a LinkedIn discussion with someone who, again, has no background in nutrition, who just put out extremely just strong statements in regards to the dangers of eating fruit because of how fast it goes into the bloodstream, spiking the blood sugar and causing diabetes. What I will say is this: in this country, we have a problem with the consumption of fruits and vegetables, and our chronic disease rates are through the roof. If we have a problem in this country with eating fruits and vegetables, and our chronic disease rates are through the roof, including diabetes, then it's safe to say that fruits and vegetables are not the cause of diabetes. It's actually the lack of consumption of fruits and vegetables that can increase the risk of these cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and all these other types of conditions as well. So let's see what the Mind Diet says in regards to our fruits. The truth about fruits are that soluble fiber inside of the fruit serves as beneficial fermented bacteria in our guts. So fermented bacteria in our guts, this is what we call a prebiotic. To feed the healthy gut bacteria, a probiotic, which can lead to healthier and better blood sugars. And I said earlier, a healthy gut microbiome diversity, which is a healthy gut, is associated with a healthy brain. And also, not only this, but fruits are rich in vitamins, minerals, antioxidants that can help to delay cognitive decline. Whenever we hear of this word antioxidant, fruits are one of the first things on the list in regards to antioxidants, helping our bodies to age a lot more slowly, slowing down the rapid decline of organs and systems in the body. We can do this by eating fruits and vegetables. And the Mind Diet recommends at least 2 servings of berries specifically a week to support brain health. Now, something that the Mind Diet does, the Mind Diet doesn't just recommend any kind of fruit. Now, it's not to say that you shouldn't eat any kind of fruit. The Mind Diet specifies eating berries because of the powerful antioxidants that they have, the powerful fiber amounts that they have as well. You can also find benefits in a lot of other fruits in regards to bananas, oranges. Somebody asked about mangoes, watermelons, pineapples. Yes, they contain sugar, but it's like what I told you earlier. Just because something contains sugar doesn't mean that it's automatically bad for you. What else does it contain? Well, watermelon, pineapple, all of these things contain high amounts of antioxidants that can help fight against disease, that can help fight against cognitive delay and decline, that can help fight against cancer, sickness, and a lot of other things as well. So even though something has sugar in it, doesn't necessarily make it something that's just demonized or evil for you or bad for your body in general. All right, so let's just kind of think of it like that. And I love that question. We can go to the next one. And number 3, nuts and seeds cause heart disease. This one is cool because it rhymes. Nuts and seeds cause heart disease, but it's a myth. It's a myth. It's a big, big, big myth. And the reason why, we'll get into that in a second. But the claim here is that eating nuts and seeds are bad for the heart because of the high amount of fats that they contain. But what does the Mind Diet say? Let's see. The truth about nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds contain what we call unsaturated fats. And every class that I talk in regards to our dietary fats, we make a distinction between unsaturated fats and saturated fats. The Mind Diet wants us to limit our saturated fat consumption. So these are animal products mainly. These are things that are going to be solid, fats that are solid at room temperature because of the ability of those fats to really solidify inside of our blood vessels, slowing down our blood flow, causing blood to not be able to get into our hearts, into our brains as efficiently, right? That's what we call vascular dementia, where you have narrowing of the blood vessels to the brain that's not filtering into the brain as efficiently as possible. So that's a problem there. Now, the type of fats that are in nuts and seeds are what we call unsaturated fats. These are the types of fats that are going to cause our cholesterol levels to be more normalized, especially our bad or our unhealthy cholesterol. So this is a very important distinction to make because there was once a time in this society where people stopped eating healthy fats like avocados because they had a lot of fat in them, or nuts and seeds because they have a lot of fat in them. But the truth is, not all fats are the same. All dietary fats are different, and we have to look at the components of each one to make the distinction between if it's a healthy fat or a fat that's not as healthy. So not only that, I forgot to mention here, now, outside of containing minerals that can support brain function, nuts and seeds also contain a vitamin called vitamin E. Vitamin E is one of the most powerfully researched antioxidants in the brain. that can really help to support overall brain function. So not only is this going to be beneficial for our hearts, but it's also going to be beneficial for our brains. Now, there are so many different types of nuts and seeds that we can talk about here today, but I just listed some of the most common ones and some of the most best ones that are some of the best ones that are associated with increased brain function. So we have walnuts, almonds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, and again, a lot of those others that might not be on this list here. I see that somebody asked about cashews. However, you heard that cashews are not good for the heart. I wouldn't say that cashews are not good for the heart. I would just say that walnuts and almonds have been more positively correlated with improved heart health and brain health. So it's kind of like an echelon of the nuts and the seeds. I don't really know it off the top of my head, but I do know that walnuts and almonds are two of the nuts that are more positively associated according to the research out there. So that's not to say ignore eating cashews. If you like cashews, I think that it could be a very beneficial thing for you to incorporate into your diet. But there are certain ones that are a little bit better. Same with pecans as well. And again, I don't have the exact, you know, has this amount of healthy fats in it compared to this one that has that many, right? So in general, we group them all together. But if we were to put some at the top, it would be walnuts and almonds, right? So those are our three myths that I wanted to talk about today in regards to the mind diet. And we can go on to the next slide, Megan. And we've kind of already been talking about this. So if you all have any other additional questions or conflicting things in the media that you hear, or maybe just questions in regards to anything that we talked about today, I would love to see what's on your mind. And I know today was kind of like bullet point kind of fast.
One of the really good questions that came up that I think is a kind of a myth or a misunderstanding is, what is the difference between a nutritionist and a registered dietitian, Greg?
Ooh, I could write a book about this, Megan. So all dietitians are nutritionists, but not all nutritionists are dietitians. So think about it this way. Um, a registered dietitian has a lot of requirements, a lot of schooling, a lot of education, and also a lot of maintenance in order to maintain their credential as a dietitian. So we have to go through a bachelor's as of 2024. Now, dietitians have to have a master's, also have to go through a 1,200 hour supervised internship where you're doing the work, getting graded in the field, in community, in clinical, whatever the case may be. You also have a certain amount of hours that you have to keep up with every 5 years, 75 hours of what we call continuing education units in order to maintain our credential. We are the only nutrition professional that is able to bill insurance. So we can own our own private practice and also get insurance reimbursement, which is pretty big. Our title is protected. Um, I mean, it's not as easy. It's not as easy as becoming a nutritionist. So a nutritionist, on the other hand, this person can not really have a degree and get a certification through an organization to be called a nutritionist. There's really no accountability in that sense, even though there can be great information that they know and learn through these nutritionist programs. It's just not as intense and not as you know inclusive of everything in regards to nutrition. Dietitians are going to be the people that rely heavily on evidence, right? So if something is not evidence based, if there have not been strong studies done in order to support a claim, then a dietitian is not going to recommend it. So this is why a lot of people feel like dietitians don't know a lot, is because there might be things that come out that have not been tested, or evidence does not support it. A dietitian is not going to just run to that conclusion or run to that person saying it. We're going to stick to the science.
It's so important to know that. I think that's a great thing for our viewers to know, especially those of you who have been diagnosed with diabetes or maybe who want to work with a professional that your insurance may even cover your work with a registered dietitian, but certainly not going to cover it with a nutritionist. But just really good to look out for as you are looking for the people who are going to be guides for you on the road ahead as you're improving your health. Look for that RD at the end of the name. This is a really good one that comes up a lot for folks who read nutrition labels.
Hmm.
We talked a little bit about the body's reaction to sugar, but a lot of times we're seeing these gums, sugar-free gums, like sugar alternatives and things like that out there. Can you speak a little bit on the difference between something like, stevia, xylitol, some of the other fake sugars that are out there? Is there any recommendations or anything that is along with the Mind Diet in that regard?
In regards to the Mind Diet, there really isn't any strong recommendation towards these products. I think that where they become beneficial, artificially sweetened products, the stevias and the monk fruits and the sweet and lows, all of these are artificial sugars. Um, Benefits for people that have diabetes, it can really help because it doesn't really spike their blood sugar as much. But over long terms or long periods of time, what the research is starting to say is that it can cause problems with the gut microbiome because this is not something that the body naturally recognizes. It's something that can cause problems long term. And not only this, it can possibly alter like brain signaling. So imagine your brain eating something or tasting something sweet, but then it doesn't really produce the calories that it thinks that is associated with that sweet thing, right? So now you're kind of confusing your brain. You ate something that's sweet, but it doesn't really have any sugar. The brain's like, okay, so give me sugar, right? So in some studies, people have actually increased their amount of sugar sweetened beverages and sweets in general because their body and their brain still crave that sugar because of eating that product that had an artificial sweetener in it. So I I don't recommend them flat out in certain populations with certain people. I might, advise maybe switching over to something like that, especially if I see that their sugar consumption is through the roof. But it really just depends on the person.
And I love that you're saying, if you do use them in moderation, use them
Yes.
sparingly, use
Yeah.
them every now and again, but don't rely on them on an everyday, ongoing basis for a long period of time, because those long-term effects do add up. Um,
Yes.
one of the questions that is next, I know is a hot topic around the cognitive empowerment program. What does the Mind Diet say about oil, canola oil, palm oil? Are they good? Are they bad?
The Mind Diet recommends olive oil as the primary oil. The amount of nutrients inside of palm oil is amazing. I'm sorry, the amount of nutrients inside of olive oil is amazing. Um, so making olive oil a staple in your pantry when it comes to especially like those more cool dishes, room temperature type of dishes can be a really beneficial piece to improving your brain health because of what we call the polyphenols. It's a type of nutrient inside of those olive oils that can really, really help the brain function and keep the brain from oxidation. So olive oil is going to be like the top of the line oil, but then everything else is just going to be in moderation. I mean, I can go in deeper into it. There's a difference between omega 3s and omega 6s. And in this country in general, our omega 3 to 6 ratio is off. And a way that we can benefit or a way that we can improve that is using less of the canola oils and the seed oils. From a practical sense, I'm not going to tell you to throw away your oil, right? But if you don't have olive oil, I would recommend that you utilize it. You get some good quality olive oil and you use that for a lot of your dishes. A good oil to use for high temperatures is like an avocado oil. A good oil to use for like more lower temperature type dishes is going to be your olive oil. Even though you can use olive oil for high heat type of stuff, the research is still not completely on one accord in regards to that, but it can be beneficial as well. So again, if you're looking for optimal oil intake, I would say having a good olive oil and a good avocado oil can be beneficial for you.
That's one of the first changes that people usually make in the program here at the Cognitive Empowerment Program is getting them off the vegetable oil and the canola oil and moving over to olive oil for food and avocado oil for cooking. And it's a little bit more pricey, but it comes for
Mhm.
a reason. There's a lot more nutrients, a lot more benefits. It's a lot more of a holistic way that it's made. And
Yeah.
so, if you have been thinking about small, simple things to do at home that are not a big, huge, heavy lift, making that change to olive oil and avocado oil, adding the blueberries in and getting some few handfuls of nuts are one
Hmm.
of our first kind of recommendations as people come into the door.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. Peanut oil, coconut oil, even though coconut oil is a little bit healthier, because it has a lot of saturated fat, the mind diet kind of strays away from it. But a lot of cultures, I know the African culture and cuisine uses a lot of coconut oil and other places as well, palm oil as well. So palm and coconut oils, high saturated fat amounts, also really good other quality fats too. But again, we always just advise more of the olive and avocado oil route when it comes to our oils. As we age, we start to lose our sense of appetite and desire to eat. And maybe eggs are one of the things that you really enjoy. I wouldn't cut that out if I were you. Again, I'm gonna be a bigger advocate of making sure you eat rather than not eating just because you're trying to eat perfectly.
And we had a comment in the chat that came in about even the loss, not just the loss of appetite, but a lot of folks are dealing with post COVID effects of loss of taste buds and things like
Mhm.
that. So
Yeah.
don't let that keep you from getting the proper nutrients that you need.
Mhm.
Even if you are going through a hurdle or something like that, there's small, manageable changes that you can make that will help support your brain health and your cardiovascular health. When it comes to nutrition, small changes and a little bit of mindfulness go a really long way. So rather than revamping your whole diet all at once and having some big goal or hurdle, small incremental changes, small moments of mindfulness are what we recommend in the program. It can be slow and low to start. And so we really encourage all of you, especially, I know we just had a question come into the chat about protein powders and things like that. If you have had a hard time eating, a
Mhm.
nice great protein powder is a fantastic way to fill in those nutrition little gaps in between, whether it's in your smoothie or in your yogurt or whatever it is. Is there any particular protein powder that you recommend, Greg?
No, research is more consistent with using whey protein. A lot of people feel some kind of way about that because whey protein, which comes from your cow, is going to be more nutritious than your plant-based proteins, right? But then again, if you're trying to cut down on your overall animal consumption, or maybe you have an allergy or you feel some kind of way when you have whey protein powder, then getting a good plant-based protein powder could also work as well, giving you some good protein and other nutrients that have been fortified inside of it. So I think using a protein powder can really work in a lot of different ways.
Well, great advice. And thank you for, your expertise and really kind of bringing it with that researched, fact validation. And we really appreciate you coming time after time to share about ways to love the mind diet, Greg. So thank you.
No problem. At any time, everyone. Thank you so much for your amazing questions. And I had a really great time with you all. And I really hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.